Thankfully, the Starbucks that I go to is like only a block away, so it doesn't take me that long to get my drinks. My coffee maker is not exactly working to its full potential at the moment, so I have to get my drinks at Starbucks. So anyways, I wanted to talk about self-improvement, how it has changed my life, and how I think that it can change your life as well. I believe that most guys, and not just most people in general, should figure out what self-improvement is and try to get on it. And the reason for that is because of our overconsumption nowadays with social media and how addicted society as a whole is to it. A good primary example of this is how most guys, instead of getting up and tackling their days, the first thing that they do is they'll scroll on social media for several minutes, and depending on the severity of their addiction, it can go on for hours. I believe that this is not the only issue that needs to be addressed, but it is part of that domino effect that leads to making other poor decisions instead of being productive and disciplined. If you are the type of guy who's ever been reclusive, a slacker, a procrastinator, socially awkward, then I believe that you're gonna benefit a lot from this type of video. Perhaps you are tired of the results you keep getting, or maybe you have projects that you never finish. So pay close attention, because the information that I have for you today is going to be life-changing. So quick story about myself. I was not always as disciplined and as productive as I am today. I used to be a total slacker, a procrastinator. I would never finish the projects that I would get started, and I was living in a state of blindness and apathy. So what I mean by apathy is that I really wasn't doing anything worthwhile, and pretty much everything that I was doing or the way that I was living was mainly just kind of like me coasting and not really progressing at life at all. I had terrible grades in school, I would always skip, and the only thing that I ever wanted to do with my free time was play video games or watch TV shows. I also even had a dream of becoming a musician. I used to play guitar, and I failed at even that. I failed at the one thing that I was completely in love with, and I failed because I didn't understand the amount of discipline that it actually took. And I'd like to sit here and share more about my story, but honestly, I could share that throughout my career on YouTube. But the main reason why I wanted to bring this forth and a little bit of my personal life was so that I can connect with you guys and showing y'all that you can in fact change by implementing the things that I'm about to show you guys. So really, the solution to changing your life and how self-improvement works could be dissected in a very broad way, but for the sake of your time in this video, I'm just gonna really dial it down to 3 key elements, and those were the ones that really helped me the most, and that is wanting, self-respect, and identity. So I put wanting as the first key element because I feel like that is the most important one. If you don't have that one thing down, then everything else falls apart, and then you're never really going to change. You gotta really want what you're pursuing, otherwise none of this is ever going to work. If you don't truly want something with all your heart, then you will fail, so you have to make up your mind in this part. Part of the problem why we have such a big issue understanding what wanting actually means is because the word want is a very normal word, right? So people will usually use it for anything. Hey, do you want to go here? Yeah, I want to go there. Would you like to be successful? Yeah. Do you want to be rich? Of course I would like to be rich. Who wouldn't? Would you like some ice cream? Yeah, I would like some ice cream. As a matter of fact, I'd like some ice cream after I'm done with this video. But if you really think about it, when you use the word want or wanting in a serious note, then it's more about the spiritual, because now it's about having a burning desire to pursue the said thing. And actually, I think that's like the most appropriate definition, which again, it's having a burning desire. And believe it or not, the thing that is holding us back and inhibiting us from understanding what wanting is actually our ego. So many times, the same thing, like how wanting gets thrown around very easily all the time, our ego is the same thing. We are very quick to point the finger at somebody and say, oh, that person is very egotistical. That person's got a high ego. But our ego is the very thing that's also keeping us down and chained to an old image, which is something I'm going to talk about a little bit later, and not allowing us to develop. So you want to get somewhere by still staying the same, and that's simply just not going to work. You want to get up here, but you are down here without wanting to make any changes. You're not going to be able to climb the ladder if you don't take the necessary steps in order to do that. So who you are now needs to be re-scripted for you to succeed, and once you have the wanting part down, that's exactly when all of the stars will start to align. Second key element is your identity. So who I was not the genuine perspective that I held of myself, as I mentioned earlier. So if you have like certain goals and you're trying to get there being the person you are now, you're never going to reach that because of who you identify as. So if you identify as a victim or a poor person, you will always stay in that same frequency. No amount of efforts will ever bring you the results that you desire unless you change that. Try to think about the amount of times you've tried to go to the gym or start a diet, for example. A lot of people always get on these diets or these fitness endeavors or whatever. And the reason why they don't stick to it for that long is because they continue to identify as the person that they see themselves as. So the very same thing can be said about like somebody who's addicted to smoking. You can offer a cigarette to a person who's attempting to quit smoking, and he has two ways of rejecting you. He can either say, "Oh, no thanks, I'm trying to quit smoking," or he could say, "No thank you, I no longer smoke." So words have a lot of power. The first statement, he still identifies as a smoker who's trying to quit, but the second statement, now he's saying he's no longer a smoker. So the same thing can be said with your fitness goals or dieting goals. Instead of saying, "Oh, I'm trying to hit the gym," or I'm trying to be on a diet," none of that stuff ever is going to make sense because it's all temporary, right? So when you set temporary goals, guess how long they're gonna last? 2 weeks, if that. But when you make it a lifestyle and you say, "Oh, I am a gym bro, I am a gym rat, I am an athlete, I am a healthy eater," then now you've already adopted that identity, and now you're going to actually partake in this lifestyle forever. So I want to give you guys like 4 analogies. I like analogies because they're kind of like the virtual hands-on training method versus just you trying to visualize everything. So of course, all of these analogies have to do with your identity, and the first analogy is the rubber band analogy. All of these analogies are attributed to your identity. The first analogy is the rubber band analogy. So try to think about putting a rubber band around your thumb, and then you start to pull on the rubber band. If you've ever done that, you know that as soon as you get it stretched long enough, what's going to happen is that it's going to smack right back to your thumb. And then you try to do it again, and then it smacks right back, unless you pull it long enough and then it just breaks, right? But for this instance, we're just going to pull it up to right here to where you know it's going to slap right back. So the analogy that I'm trying to make here is that you, or most of us, we identify as the rubber band, and the rubber band is equal to our decisions and our actions in life. But we're not the rubber band, we are the thumb. So as long as you don't change this, which goes back to your identity, then none of your actions or decisions in life are going to last forever, because then after a while you're going to relapse because you still don't identify. So the problem doesn't start with the rubber band, the problem starts with you. The second analogy is the age analogy. So let's grab your 18-year-old self and your 30-year-old self, and let's ask them both who would live their 20s in a much more in a superior way. Chances are that you're going to say your 30-year-old self will. Why? Because not only has your 30-year-old self has experienced it, but if you were to grab your 30-year-old self to re-experience it again, not only will he do a great job of it, but he's going to completely destroy your 20s. He's going to do a great job. Meanwhile, your 18-year-old self has not had that same experience, so it's going to be a little bit harder for him to develop. So what I'm trying to say here is that for those of you who are still stuck with this idea that there is no such thing as change, you should always stay the same, how can you say that your 18-year-old self and your 30-year-old self are going to be the same person? If that is in fact something that you live by, then that kind of sucks, because when you think about it, that means you haven't developed or done anything with your life. Your 30-year-old self has to, in fact, be superior to your 18-year-old self. Your 30-year-old self would not only be so good at doing things in his 20s, he would deserve to do a better job than your 18-year-old self, because your 18-year-old self has not experienced it. He doesn't deserve to have that experience because he hasn't lived through it. And the third and fourth analogy go hand in hand, and that's the celebrity and video game analogies. So for the celebrity one, I want you guys to think about your favorite celebrity or entrepreneur or whoever it is you look up to. Many times most people separate themselves completely from the level that they're at and the level that celebrities are at, thinking, I will never reach that point where that person is at. That person must have been in the right place at the right time, or, oh, that person might have just got lucky, right? But I want you guys to understand that you already have everything that you need to get to that point, because everything that they have internally that got them to that point is something that you have. You have the same organism. You already have the same hands, the same arms, you have the same mind, the same eyeballs. The point is that you need to get to that point and level up to the point where they're at. So this is where the video game analogy comes in. So like, let's say you're playing an RPG or something like that, a role-playing game, and you know, you're playing with your buddies or other guys online, you're gonna see that a lot of these guys are in level 50, level 70, level 100, and you probably don't think to yourself, oh, it's impossible to get there. You'll probably be impressed, right? But you're not gonna think it's impossible to get there because you know that internally in that video game, it is possible for you to get that character up to that point. So if I, for instance, get that character up to that level and I hand you over the control and you've never played this game, guaranteed you're gonna get wrecked. So not only will you get destroyed, but you will deserve to get destroyed because you don't have the required experience, nor did you do that yourself to get to that point. So where I'm trying to get here is the reason why you feel so far away from this point is because not only have you not built yourself up to that point, but because you haven't lived it, of course, you're not going to understand what it even feels like. But if you were to progressively overload every single day into improving yourself, you might just reach that level. I guess I should say, since I already mentioned progressively overloading, that's a thing that we use at the gym. So, you know, you're not gonna start off with 135 on a bench press. You're gonna have to start off with like the little ones, or maybe even the bar alone. But after a few weeks, a few months, a few years, you'll start to get to the point where you want to be at. But as of right now, you're not at that point, but you need to understand that you can get to that point. And a prime example on everything I just spoke about on identity goes to people who have won the lottery. So if you guys have ever looked up lottery winners, they usually wind up losing their entire fortunes within a few months, if not maybe just a little bit after a year. And this happens all because of their identity. They don't comprehend what it is to be at that level, right? They don't have the required experience to be at the point of a rich and famous person. So because their identity is still tied down to being a victim and a poor person, unfortunately, that's just how fast the money's gonna go as well. And it all really comes down to the way you think, because really being rich is not just about the material gain and the money, but it also has to do with the way that you think. And guys, my bad, I actually made a mistake. Identity was supposed to be the third key element, so I guess I'll just go ahead and make that the second one, and let's just get into the third one now, which is self-respect. All right, so with self-respect, if you respected yourself, you do everything possible to improve. Nowadays, self-respect is pretty much like just a delusional attribute that everybody throws around thanks to mainstream media, where everybody's like, oh, it doesn't matter how you are. You could be a stinky, fat, morbidly obese, irresponsible individual. You should love yourself no matter what. But obviously, the way that I'm doing things in this channel is for actual self-improvement and self-actualization. I had to elaborate that word because I don't know if I was gonna say it right. But yeah, I hope you guys understand what I'm saying. When it comes to self-respect, everybody likes to say, oh, if somebody will love me at my worst, they'll love me at my best. And you know, these are statements that can be just as wholesome as, you know, it's not what's on the outside that counts, it's what's on the inside. So popular terms like this can be good, of course, right? But they also scream out insecurity and weakness and being complacent. Because what happens if you are a dirty, stinky, irresponsible individual? You cannot possibly justify those things, right? Like if you don't know how to groom, if you stink, if you lack hygiene, if you are a bully, a terrible individual, then maybe you should look in the mirror and start to think of ways of actually changing. Sometimes who you think you are isn't exactly where you need to be, and just because you feel that that's what you are, again, it doesn't mean that that's who you need to be. And when it comes down to the external, whether it's like the way you look physically or like the way you dress or the way you groom, nobody else is doing that for you besides who you are inside as a person. So what I'm saying is that however you are inside as a person is going to manifest on the outside, because nobody else is dressing you, man. You're doing that yourself. So you can't get away with saying it's what's inside that counts, because nobody else is running your life for you but you. So for my very persistent and arrogant guys out there who don't want to grasp this idea, I have an analogy for you as well. And that analogy is, would you penetrate yourself? That's exactly the way it sounds. And what that means is that, would you have intercourse with yourself if you were to switch places with the woman that you would like to someday be with? Chances are that if your answer is no, then you got a lot of work to do. And I know that analogies like this can be harsh and they sound disgusting, but you know, sometimes you need a little bit of this tough love to help you understand, because the first time I heard that analogy, I was like, whoa, hold on a second, like I'm not yet at the place where I want to be. I could in fact improve. I see that there is room for improvement. So a lot of guys, they go around thirsting over the hottest girls and most beautiful women out there, but they are unwilling to change anything about themselves. So how is it that you get to look at these beautiful women, but what about you? The competition is not even that high, bro. It's not. Like, just by you having like a neat and 2-3 minute grooming routine, you already put yourself at a 10% advantage, meaning that 90% of guys are just lazy. You'd be in the top 10% just by doing the bare minimum. And yeah, I get it. There's more to self-respect and intercourse in the way you look. However, this is a channel for guys, right? So we gotta touch on these subjects as well. So lastly, what I wanna say is that none of this will be easy. And you really gotta grasp the very first thing that I spoke about, which is wanting. If you don't truly want the said thing, then none of this is gonna work for you. And that's probably the reason why most of the videos that you watch on YouTube don't ever work out for you. I personally was sick and tired of always failing my mission and being a procrastinator, that I got to the point where I started questioning, like, there must be a reason why this keeps happening. And it wasn't until I had that understanding of identity and self-respect that I started to change. But the very first thing that I realized was truly wanting, and it's mainly because I was just sick and tired of getting the same results and just not identifying with the perspective, the genuine perspective that I held of myself. So that is all that I gotta say today, guys. Thank you all very much for sticking around and watching this video. Hope this video helps you guys out. Share it with your buddies or anybody out there that feels they might need a good message such as this one. Stick around for more content that is quite like this. We're gonna be talking about anything that has to do with improving our lives and just plain and simple being disciplined, productive, more stylish, and so on and so forth. Thank you guys for watching again. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. And as always, stay intentional. See ya.